Well, hello everybody, my name is Roger and welcome to my channel, Rogers Reads. So today I'm doing a book review and the book is entitled The Wicked Deep by Shea Ernshaw. And I've seen several people review this book in their channels and it sounded like a book that I thought that I would enjoy, and it actually did turn out to be quite an enjoyable read for me. So the story follows our main character, Penny, who lives with her mother on a small island in a town called Sparrow. Now, Sparrow could be just like any other little island town, except that it has a rather dark history. So 2 centuries ago, the Swan sisters, there was Marguerite, Aurora, and Hazel, were sentenced to death for witchcraft. But instead of being hanged or burned, as it was often the case with the witch trials, the sisters' hands were bound, rocks were tied to their ankles, and they were drowned off the shore of the island. Now, when I first picked up this book, I thought that the sisters were actually witches, but as it turns out, they really weren't. What they were incredibly beautiful and alluring women, and their real only true crime was seducing the men on the island. 2 of the sisters were especially fond of sex. So basically, what we have here is a vicious case of slut shaming leading to the murders of 3 innocent young women. But that was not the last the small town heard of the Swan sisters. As it turns out, every summer, the sisters rise from their watery graves and return in order to take revenge on the town that wronged them. So every year, each of the sisters takes over and inhabits a body of a local girl. And once in human form, the girls then each drown at least one boy between June 1st and June 21st, the summer solstice. So during that time, no boys, whether they be local or tourists, are safe. You see, once a Swan sister has her sights on a boy, he is pretty much powerless to resist and will willingly follow the sister into the sea and ultimately to his own death. Oh, and also nobody knows which local girl is possessed because while living in the host's body, the Swan sister is able to absorb the personality and memories and mannerisms of the host. So it's nearly impossible to tell who has been possessed. And every year when they come, they choose a different host every time. But despite the danger, tourists flock in from all over in the hopes of perhaps catching a glimpse of the infamous Swan sisters who have killed innocent boys every summer for the past 200 years. So back to our main character, Penny. On the eve of the sisters' yearly return, a boy named Bo Carter arrives in Sparrow, completely oblivious to the danger that he's just walked into. Now, there was kind of an insta-love thing going on here with Penny and Bo, which kind of annoyed me a bit, but the story was interesting enough that I was able to overlook it, especially when we learned that they both have secrets that they are keeping from each other. But still, they moved to the lovey-dovey stage really quickly, in my opinion. So they get together romantically, but as we can guess, one of the Swan sisters sets her sights on Bo, and it's up to Penny to then protect him. So what I liked about the story, I really enjoyed how the story weaved back and forth between present day and the past events when the sisters were still human, and it slowly unfolds how things ended up turning so tragic for them and the town. It was nice to see the human side of the Swans and not only the raging, vengeful side, which helped the reader to kind of understand where they were coming from. Now, the town drama sucked me in right away. Once boys begin drowning, mistrust spreads like wildfire as everyone, the reader included, tries to figure out which of the town's girls the sisters have possessed. So everyone is a suspect, which means that not only is any boy safe, but neither is any girl, as the town turns into a literal witch hunt. So the mystery aspect of it was kind of fun, and there's also a mystery surrounding Penny's absent father, which gets revealed on gets revealed later on in the story. So I love a story with dark legends, curses, and revenge, and in that aspect this book didn't disappoint. The writing of the book was also quite beautiful and lyrical, almost magical, and the author is obviously quite adept at crafting beautiful prose. Now on to what I didn't like. I already mentioned disliking the insta-love trope, but even apart from that, the romance didn't really work for me. In my opinion, this was probably the weakest aspect of the story. Now, I don't know, I just didn't feel the intensity or the chemistry between them. Certainly not enough that they would risk their lives for each other after having only known each other for a couple of days. I also have to admit that I had one hell of a time getting into this book for some strange reason. You know, usually when I start a novel, I finish it within a day or two, but I kept putting this one down and picking it up, putting it down and picking it back up for several days at a time, and I actually considered DNFing it at one point. So there was an incredibly slow build-up for me, at least from my perspective. I don't know. The characters perhaps lacked that initial depth, though most of them ended up being nicely developed later on. But I did feel that there was somewhat of a pacing problem in the story, and it did take me a long time to get into it. But once the story picked up steam past the halfway point, my interest in it peaked, and I found myself utterly enjoying the novel, from that point forward. Another niggle is that I figured out the twist really early on. I think it could have been camouflaged a little better, or maybe there could have been more attempts to lead the reader astray. But in spite of the fact that I figured it out, the story was still fun, and I enjoyed seeing how it all played out. The one thing that did strike me as odd in the story were the festivals and celebrations that the town would have during swan season, complete with parties and various festivities. I mean, every year during this time, several young men are murdered, several young people die. So my question was that were people so desensitized to these deaths that celebrating the Swan Sisters somehow seemed okay to them? I can't believe that people in a small town would act like this. You think that as swan season approached that they would close off the town, shut down their shops, and head for the hills during the month of June, rather than engaging in merrymaking. I don't know. At least maybe that's just me. So anyway, on to the final verdict. So I really liked the premise of this story, and The Wicked Deep ended up being a heavy tale about revenge, betrayal, murder, and forgiveness. So in this way, it was a darker story, kind of spooky and definitely heartbreaking in places. But once I got past the halfway point, I became more invested in what happened to the characters, and the story enthralled me much more than it did initially. But the extremely slow start and the predictability of the plot kind of dampened my enthusiasm for the book. Now, I didn't dislike it. On the contrary, I thought that the story was compelling with interesting characters, and I am really glad that I read it. I just didn't love it as much as I hoped I would. So I would give this book about 3.5 stars. Oh, I also read that Netflix is supposedly going to be making a movie or a series from this book. So congratulations to the author for that deal. I hope they do it, because I definitely would watch it. That's because it was really a good story. So how about you? Have you read this book? If so, what did you think? Let me know in the comments. And I think that's it for this time. As always, I thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support. And if you like this video, I appreciate if you give it a thumbs up. And also subscribe if you haven't. That way you'll get notified when I post new videos. So I think that's it for now. I will talk to you in the next video. Roger and out.